Buying a house in Italy is a dream for many migrants. But unless you have enough money to pay cash, you will need a mortgage called mutuo from a bank. A mortgage is basically a loan from the bank to help you buy a property. You pay it back in monthly installments called rates, usually over 10 to 30 years with interest. For migrants, getting approved for a mortgage can be more complicated than for Italians. This is not because banks want to discriminate, but because banks check many factors to make sure they will get their money back. If they see any risk, they may say no or offer less money. This guide will explain from A to Z what Italian banks look for before granting a mortgage to a migrant. So I'll be talking about what Italian banks consider before granting mortgage to migrants in Italy. The first thing they consider is the age of the applicant. Banks in Italy want to make sure you can finish paying your mortgage before you are too old to work. The mortgage must finish before you are 75 years old to 80 years old. So it varies between banks. Example, if you are 45 years old and the bank's limit is 75 years, you can get at most a 30-year mortgage, meaning that if you get the loan at age 45, they will tell you you have to pay in 30 years' time. When you add that 30 years to your 45, you should be 75 years. That is the limit most banks in Italy accept. If you are older, the bank may offer a shorter repayment period, which means higher monthly payments. If you are older than 45 years, you have to get the loan together with your wife or your child or your brother, okay? So that is younger, someone that is younger, your family member that is younger than you are, so that the duration of the loan will be extended, okay? If you are 45, for instance, or you are 46 years old and your wife is 40 years and she lives with you in Italy, or your child is 22 years, above 18 years, and resides in Italy, you can combine your name with your family member's name that is younger. So with this, the bank will consider giving you the loan. B, bank's risk assessment. The bank also considers the risk. Every bank does a risk assessment before granting a mortgage. They ask the following question: will this person be able to pay every month for many years? If they can't pay, can we recover the money by selling the house? These are some of the questions the bank will ask themselves before they decide if to give you or not. Migrants sometimes face extra checks because of their job history in Italy, which is too short. Okay, migrants usually have short work history. They may not have long credit history. Also, bank considers if you have taken loans before. Another thing they consider is the residence permits. Some migrants have temporary residence permits, which the bank also considers. Show the bank as much proof as possible of stability, showing that you are stable here in Italy. You have a stable job, a stable house, you have been paying your tax, etc. And even prove you have lived in a place for many years. If you've been a tenant living at the same house for many years, it is a plus to you because that is positive. Okay, it means you are stable. C, Italian banks use credit databases to check your history with loan, credit cards, and payments. They want to see if you've taken loan before and how you were able to pay. If you have never had a loan in Italy, you have no credit history. They usually ask this question if you've taken loan before. This is not bad, but it's not as strong as having one good credit history. Maybe if you owe house rents, if you don't pay your light bill, your waste bill, those things will reflect. They reflect, okay? So you must make sure that you are up to date with those payments. So once they get any sign that you are not a good payer, you don't pay debt as at when due, your chances of getting the loan will drop. D, documents required. A bank will ask for many documents. You must prepare them before you apply to speed up the process. Main documents for migrants, the documents that banks usually ask for are valid passport or carta d'identità, national ID card, your permesso di soggiorno, of course, the lungo permesso di soggiorno, the one of 10 years, okay? Another thing they ask is your tax code, codice fiscale, your proof of income, that is your payslips, busta paga, your certificazione unica, CU, which you get from your employer, your tax returns, which is usually on the AIMS website. When you go to AIMS website, you will get a list of all the taxes you've paid since you came to Italy, since you started working up to date. Also, they ask for employment contract, your work employment. What they want is a permanent fixed term employment, permanent job, a tempo contractor, a tempo indeterminator. That is fixed term work contracts. That is what they call indeterminator. They also look for bank statement. They want your last 3 to 6 months bank statements. And I've talked about your pay slip, okay? Your last 3 pay slips. They want to make sure that your salary enters regularly. E, employment contracts type. Bankers prefer borrowers with permanent contracts, which I've talked about. They also prefer borrowers in public sector, okay, which is a plus. However, if you are in a private sector, a good private sector is also good. Also, banks check how long have you had the contract. They will usually ask you, what kind of contract you have? You say tempo indeterminate or fixed term contract. They will ask you, how long have you been working there? So the longer the time, the duration you've been working there, the better. So that is a plus. F, they also consider your family status, your family situation. Banks may check whether you have dependents, like children or wife. If you have wife, is she employed or unemployed? Whether you are applying alone or with someone, like your child or your spouse. If applying with your spouse who also works, your combined income can improve your chances. Okay, if your wife or your child, you are applying with someone that also works, it means your chance of getting the loan will increase. G, guarantor. If your income or job stability is weak, a bank may approve the mortgage only if you bring a guarantor. A guarantor is someone who promises to pay if you cannot pay. A guarantor must have strong financial stability and good credit history. H, house value. They consider what is the value of the house. The bank will not always give you 100% of the house price. The standard allowed for most banks in Italy is from 70 to 80%. They can give you 80% of the house value, and you will provide 20%. So you now, if you want 100%, you may need to use a concept guarantee. Do you understand? So I will be telling you in my next video what is concept guarantee. Okay, so subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. Okay, this video takes a lot of research and experience, personal experience too. For example, if the house costs 150,000 euros and the bank's limit is 80%, they want to give you 80% of that value, they can give you, the 80% will be 120,000 euros. So you need to have 30,000 euros to add to it, which is 20%. The bank will give you 80% and you will add 20% plus not just the 30,000 or the 20%. You will also have the expenses, because house comes with expenses. You have to do other expenses, documentation of the house. So you must have the 20% plus and also have the expenses to do for the documentation of the house, transfer of ownership. I'll be making video on the things or how to transfer the ownership, how the ownership transfer is done, the documentations also that are being done. So subscribe to my channel. I, income level. Bank checks your monthly income, and they also check if you have debts before, if you have low debts that you are paying. This is where I would like to end this part 1. This is part 1. So I will continue from I in my part 2. So subscribe to this channel so that you know the things that bank check before they give migrants loan. Share these videos with your friends and give me thumbs up. See you in my next video. Ciao.